בבקשה, לילי.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lily Zamir, and I'm the academic director and co-founder of WISC. I'm very pleased to host you with us this evening and a very special panel dedicated to women educators during the Holocaust. Education throughout history was one of the strongest means of resistance and change. It's true throughout history in general and particularly in the hard days of the Holocaust. Education was not only a source of resistance, but also a source of getting some hope in a very hopeless situation. So this panel is going to be dedicated to 3 women educators, each one of them very special, each one of them in a very different field. So we are going to have a triangle of fields. And of course, each of them, even though all they did was not enough recognized in the collective memory and throughout the historical researches. So let's hope that this panel is going to bring a little bit of change and maybe even a huge change, because each one of you can go and spread the theory to other people. Today we have 3 very interesting, distinguished guests as lecturers. The first one is Miss Masza Makarowa, and she's going to talk about medical education in the Warsaw Ghetto, and her example will be Luba Blum. Masza is an historian, very well-known educator, journalist, author of the Guide of the Former Warsaw Ghetto. She works in the education department of the Warsaw Ghetto Museum. She is now working on a biographical book about Anna Broad-Heller. She's interested in the issues of memory and trauma. And she's also a researcher of the history of the Jewish district and the identity of its inhabitants. So, dear Masza, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will try to share my presentation, and I hope that it will be successful. Okay, I hope that you see the first slide. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
great.
fine.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much for an invitation, and I'm very, very glad to be here today and to share with you the fantastic history of life and of work in Warsaw, the story of life of Luba Bielicka-Blum, and history of medical education in the Warsaw Ghetto. Actually, as Professor Maria Cisielska, an author of the book Lekarze Getta Warszawskiego, the doctors from Warsaw Ghetto, wrote, doctors in the Warsaw Ghetto were in a really tough spot. They were some of the most wanted and needed specialists. At the same time, their ability to work and especially the conditions they had to work in were really limited. The possibility of training new medical staff was also taken away. Those who had now managed to complete their medical studies before the war went to work in hospitals. A doctor is not a doctor, a teacher is not a teacher, and theater is not a theater, wrote Stanisław Różycki about medicine in the ghetto. I enter the hospital accompanied by a doctor I know. I meet a number of young people, some of whom I know, performing responsible functions. I know their qualifications, their previous studies, what they graduated from, where and when. Here is my friend who completed 3 years of medical school before the war. He is now an independent doctor in charge of a ward. It's difficult, but that's not the worst of it. There is a 19-year-old young man working as a doctor, having completed only 1 year of medical studies before the war. That's even worse, wrote Różycki. Różycki also meets graduates of an epidemic control course in the hospital and is equally critical of them. And really, in 1941, on the orders of the German authorities, a sanitary training course for combating epidemics was established in Warsaw Ghetto. In fact, it was a secret medical school. The course was organized and run by Associate Professor Julius Zweiber. Classes were held from 5 p.m. To 8 p.m. Interest in the courses was enormous, even though they were quite expensive, like 40 zlotys. Dr. Hendrik Pfennigstein, who taught anatomy, said that he greatly enjoyed teaching on courses. I loved teaching people who wanted to learn at that time. In the Warsaw Ghetto, teaching these young people who were hungry for knowledge improved my self-esteem. I needed it. There were no artificial barriers between us. Teachers helped as much as they could, spending as much time as they could with each student, and they seasoned it with a dose of solid humor. We worked hard, usually finding time for jokes, chats, and laughter. It was necessary to reduce the intense psychological tension. Lectures in this case received salaries of up to 1,000 zlotys a month, huge, huge money. Their duties included teaching classes, providing lecture notes, and preparing boards at teaching aids. The final exams were held in the spring of 1942 before a commission. The results were recognized by the University of Warsaw as all data was forwarded from the ghetto on an ongoing basis. Approximately 500 students completed the courses, but after the war, only 50 people reported to the University of Warsaw to have their credits verified. However, there was also another medical school in the Warsaw Ghetto, a school with a very long tradition, which had been operating in Warsaw since 1923. The nursing school. It continued its activities even behind the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto. I was a member of the first intake of students, and the final director of the school, Luba Bielicka-Blum, would later say of the nursing school that defined her life. And I want to share with you the remarkable story of Luba Bielicka-Blum. She was born in 1905 and became one of the first students at the Jewish nursing school in Warsaw in the 1920s. She wrote just after the war. Nursing as a profession was looked down upon that time. My father, for example, did not want to say goodbye to me before I left for school. There has never been such an accident in our family, said my father, who was a miller. The headmistress of my secondary school thought, you are too talented for nursing, and refused to give me a reference for the nursing school. There were no qualified nurses in Poland. The graduates of the nursing school in a Jewish hospital on Czyste in Warsaw were therefore pioneers on the nursing profession in Jewish society. Luba graduated with distinction and quickly proved herself as a skilled nurse and an able teacher. She saw about the nursing profession with great responsibility, as you see in this fragment of her memoirs. And by August 1939, on the eve of war, Luba had become the school's director. She was also a committed socialist activist in the Bund and actually with her husband Abrasha Blum, and those values of social justice and service guided her life. When the Second World War broke out and the German invasion of Poland began, many colleagues of Luba and Abrasha fled or were evacuated. Their family, however, remained in Warsaw because they wanted to be together with Jewish people. With the previous director absent, Luba stepped up to lead the school through the coming war storm. In the following years, Luba will try to maintain the same schedule that existed at the school before the war. The headmistress immediately introduced strict discipline, exactly the same as had existed at the school since its inception. She simply refused to accept that the school was now located in the ghetto, wrote Alina Margolis-Edelman, one of the school students in the ghetto and daughter of Anna Margolis, a respected doctor at the Berson and Bauman Hospital. So the study schedule was as follows. The first trial period lasted 4 months and covered the basics of theory and practical nursing in a demonstration room. The school management wanted to be able to form an opinion about the overall value of the student and her suitability for the profession during the first 6 months. In the second period, there were practical classes mixed with theoretical lectures. This was possible because different teams did their practical training in the wards. Practical training in community nursing, which took place in the city, was no longer combined with theoretical classes. At the beginning of the occupation, Luba's nursing school was shut down by the Germans, yet Luba refused to let her school die. She understood that trained nurses were desperately needed as disease and suffering spread in the ghetto. Defying the odds, Luba managed to obtain permission to reopen the nursing school inside the ghetto. It reopened at the nursing school of the Jewish hospital in Warsaw, operating under very dramatically harsher conditions. This little nursing school became the only officially allowed educational establishment in the entire ghetto. About 60 young Jewish women enrolled as students and began their training under Luba's leadership. In the ghetto, schools became a place where parents wanted to hide their children from the dangers of war, and Alina Margolis wrote that it was her case also because her mother was a very well-known doctor in Warsaw Ghetto. They came from Łódź, and only 3 instructors who had recently graduated from the school and moved to the ghetto with it were real nurses. The rest of the girls were almost at the end of their lives, which awaited them at the Umschlagplatz, childish and frivolous. Luba secured a new location for the school at 1 Marianska Street, 34 Pańska Street, a building that had once housed a social insurance office. In the wasteland of the ghetto, this building stood out. It was one of the most beautiful buildings in the ghetto, Luba recalled. The classrooms and dormitories were inside this solid many-windowed structure, and Luba even moved there herself with her 2 young children, living in the school halls to oversee its operation and keep her family close. 2 years ago, I recorded an interview with Luba's daughter, Israeli artist Aviva Blum-Bach's Victoria during her Warsaw period of life. She recalled that she and her brother Oleg used to entertain themselves by sliding down the banisters from top to bottom. It's not entirely clear whether their father, Abrasha Blum, lived with them. Aviva recalled that Abrasha Blum lived elsewhere, as only women and girls lived in the building. Abrasha would visit his children in the evenings and read them Homer's Odyssey in installments. But Alina Margolis, a student of the nursing school, recalled that Abrasha stayed in the building, and here you have a fragment of her memoirs about Abrasha. But let's return to the school building, which, as Alina Margolis wrote, was a different world from the streets of the ghetto. However, inside those walls, the situation was far from comfortable. Space was extremely tight. It was so cramped that for a while our lecture hall had to be set up on the staircases and the landing. Luba wrote in this way, describing the first month at the new site. Despite these conditions, Luba insisted on maintaining very high standards. The school somehow managed to bring over all the inventory and equipment from its pre-war location, beds for demonstrations, basic medical tools, whatever textbooks and notes they could save. Under her guidance, the students followed a very rigorous program, similar to any nursing program of the time. Formal lectures were held whenever and wherever space permitted, often in corridors of any corner that could fit a few chairs. Luba herself, along with a handful of other instructors, taught classes and supervised practical training all at once, truly multitasking under um, huge pressure. What was life like for the student nurses in the ghetto? Surprisingly, even in the middle of hunger and dirt, they tried to live like normal students. They had uniforms that Luba helped organize. Pink and white striped dresses, white aprons with straps, and small white caps. One survivor said the collars and cuffs were kept clean almost until the end of the ghetto. When they walked through the streets of ghetto, they stood out. Alina Margolis said that in the gray, crowded ghetto, the students looked like pink flower petals, bright, neat, and full of hope. The uniforms meant more than just clothing. They were a way to show dignity, and also the uniforms offered them some protection from German soldiers. The students worked hard every day. They went to classes and also worked in the ghetto hospitals and clinics. Between others, at the Berson and Baumann Hospital, and also girls learned to care for mothers and babies. And they even helped in clinics for refugees, and also they worked on Stavky Street and on Leshna in the hospital for adults. Alina Margolis recalled. So back when hospitals were still hospitals and patients were in beds, we worked 3 shifts, morning, afternoon, and night. There were always more of us than normal nurses, and we provided the patients with luxurious care. The headmistress came 3 times a day to inspect how the students on duty were doing. The worst was on Śliska Street because it was so close that she sometimes came even more often. So it's about this hospital for Jewish children. We called her Luba the cow. So when the headmistress appeared in the hospital, she was always preceded by a whisper, the cow. This meant that we had to quickly smooth out the bed, straighten the sheets, and wipe the window sill with a rag. So the white glove the headmistress wore especially for this purpose would not detect the slightest trace of dust. Because we were really very silly, we made up rhymes and sent them so that she could hear us. There were many rhymes, and between each chorus, my head is swelling 3 times a day. The cow eats all Śliska. The challenges were very, very huge. There were almost no supplies. Medicine, bandage, soap, and even food were very hard to find in ghetto. Many students came to class hungry, but they still went to the hospitals because they knew their help was needed. And they reused everything they could. There weren't enough books, and many were very old, so Luba and the other teachers often taught from memory and experience. The ghetto was crowded and full of disease, so getting sick was a constant danger. Many students had to care for sick family members after class because typhus and other diseases. The true test of Luba Bielicka's leadership came in 1942. By that summer, the situation in the Warsaw Ghetto had grown even more dire. In July 1942, the Nazis began so-called Grossaktion, the mass deportation from ghetto to the Treblinka death camp. In August 1942, the nursing school itself was caught up in this horror. Despite Luba's efforts to shield her students, a group of Nazi personnel entered the school and ordered everyone out. Luba managed to save female students and her own children twice, once from Grzybowski Square and the second time from Umschlagplatz. And Luba wrote that Dr. Pravda Hellerova, so a chief doctor of Berson and Baumann Hospital, helped her and helped to take her children away in an ambulance from Umschlagplatz. Luba managed to convince the Germans that her nurses were important and they were needed to stop disease from spreading. Because of this, some of her students were pulled from the Umschlagplatz at the very last moment and not sent away on the trains. Luba's quick thinking helped in such a situation. After the big deportation in the summer of 1942, the Warsaw Ghetto became much smaller. Luba managed to save 19 of her female students. They lived at Franciszkańska Street 24 in a place called the Nurses' Home, Schwesternheim. They all worked at the hospital on Gęsia Street, the last hospital in the Warsaw Ghetto. In January 1943, the fragile peace of the small Warsaw Ghetto was violently shattered. The Germans launched a surprise raid and mini deportation action as a prelude to final liquidation. Several of Luba's nurses, her students, were killed by the Nazis. The nursing school, by then already a shadow of its former self, ceased to exist after this. There were simply not enough staff or students left to continue, and the danger had become too great. Luba wrote
Can
after
you
the
sum up?
yeah
Can
yeah
you
sure
please sum up?
yeah okay and after this part of the liquidation of Warsaw Ghetto, Luba escaped with her children on so-called Aryan side, and they survived, but her husband, Abrasza Blum, was killed, was executed by the Nazis shortly after Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Alina Margolis wondered in her memoirs what the iron discipline she imposed on her students in the Warsaw Ghetto until the very last moment, her act of resistance, her private Jewish fighting organization, or a profession of faith in the ideal that guided her throughout her life and was expressed in the portrait of Florence Nightingale hanging in the school, or simply proof of a complete lack of imagination. Oh, just a cow, the girls in pink dresses would probably have said if they had managed to avoid the gas chambers. Of the 350 female graduates of school Luba Bielicka's, only 42 survived. Luba calculated it after the war. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, it was really something new. I did not know about this wonderful project and this wonderful person, Luba. So thank you for sharing us the knowledge. Our next speaker is Dr. Mariusz Jastrov. I hope that I pronounced your name okay. He's going to talk about Stefa. Stefa did not get the acknowledgement she deserved. I know that about 25 years ago, the first real seminar work for an MA student in Israel about Stefa was done in our college. One of my students wrote on her, and everybody said, Stefa, what? What do you mean she was with Korczak, but he's the superstar? Well, I doubt who was the superstar, but anyway, he was the one with the best public relations. Dr. Marius is an historian, educator, university lecturer, an expert in cultural studies. He works in the education department of the Warsaw Ghetto Museum for about 10 years. And he has also been recognized and running the anti-discrimination training of various professional groups, including local administration, librarians, lawyers, journalists, police officers, border guards, and prison service. Wow, you should be in Israel, police. This is the tough cook in our everyday life. So I'm very pleased and honored to introduce Mariusz and his topic about Stefa.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here, first of all. Yes, working with people in uniforms, staff sometimes. Um, uh, if I may make a small correction uh, to your introduction, I was working in the Polin Museum for about 10 years. I joined the Warsaw Ghetto Museum a year ago. And going to Stefan. mm, okay, I'm sharing. Okay, here it comes. So yes, what I'm going to speak about is the problem of her recognition or the lack of recognition. Uh, what you see in this first slide is a book by Magdalena Kicińska, the first biographical book on Wilczyńska, published in Poland in 2015 and in English in 2021. Uh, this is not the first publication on Stefa, but the book that sparkled a discussion in Poland. Many reviews appeared. So this is a book thanks to which Wilczyńska uh, became known to a wider public. After the book was published, Wilczyńska started being mentioned more often in popular articles, in commemorative speeches, in educational materials, or by city guides on various occasions, various tours. And thanks to this book, Korczak is not depicted any longer as the only hero and the only martyr who came to gas chambers with children with no other names mentioned, which is a significant change, I would say. But there is still a certain tendency, a certain convention of speaking and writing about Stefa. And this is what I would like to talk about. But before I move to this subject, let me recall basic facts about her. Um, she was born in 1886. Her parents were Isaac or Julian Wilczyński and Sara or Salomea Wilczyńska. Stefania's father was a merchant. The family was middle class. We don't know exactly what his father did for living. He was engaged in a financial brokerage, buying and selling bills of exchange, but it seems to be a business on a small scale. Most probably he worked individually. Somebody by the name of Wilczyński is a president of a grain export company in Warsaw in 1883, but we are not sure whether it was her father or somebody else. And both parents came to Warsaw from Nieszawa, which is a small town in northwestern Poland. The use of Christian names, Julian and Salomea, suggests that the family was enculturated, although again, we don't know. And Magdalena Kicińska book shows how limited our knowledge of Wilczyńska is. So most probably the family was enculturated, but we don't know to what extent. Her first language was Polish. She had to learn Yiddish to be able to work with Jewish children. Speaking about the family, this is their grave in the Jewish cemetery in Warsaw. She had siblings. Her sister Julia studied in Zurich. She became a high school teacher. She taught geography and also ran a sanatorium for children on the outskirts of Warsaw. She perished in the Warsaw Ghetto during the Great Deportation operation. Stanisław, Stefan's brother, was an engineer with an outstanding career in interwar Poland. He was a sales director of a large joint stock company manufacturing wires and cables. He graduated from the Polytechnical Institute in Zurich. There were most probably two other sisters, but we don't know anything about them. As to the brother, after the creation of the ghetto in Warsaw, he remained on the so-called Aryan side, and he most probably died of cancer in 1943. Stefan finished a private secondary school for girls run by Jadwiga Sikorska, which was a very progressive private educational institution, putting strong emphasis on natural sciences and on sports, which was quite unusual in schools for girls. And it had, for example, Maria Skłodowska, future Marie Curie, Nobel laureate among its graduates. And there were some students who were ethnically Polish and quite many girls from enculturated Jewish families who attended the school. Between 1906 and 1908, Stefan studies natural sciences and medicine in Geneva and Liège. And in the records, in the university records, there is a note that she was an outstanding student, but she did not finish. She did not receive a diploma. And again, we don't know for what reason. Additionally, she was trained as a kindergarten teacher, but we don't know when and where. An important date in her life is 1909. This is when she starts working in an orphanage run by a Jewish charity, Help for Orphans Society at Franciszkańska Street in Warsaw. The society, established in 1907, is chaired by Isaac Eliasberg, whom you see here in the center next to Stefan and Korczak, or between Stefan and Korczak, I should say. And he is a doctor from Bershon and Baumann Hospital. Isaac and his wife Stella are parents-in-law of Stefania's brother Stanisław. So she gets a job through Stella, through contacts with her. But another thing that we don't know is why Stefa decides to work with children. Uh, mm, she does not receive a regular salary. She works for boarding, and Franciszkańska is where she first meets Korczak. Korczak is a board member of the Help for Children Society at that time. In 1912, the society opens up a new orphanage, a children's home at Krochmalna Street, which Stefa and Korczak run together. In 1937, Stefa leaves Krochmalna and starts working for the Central Society for the Care of Orphans, for CENTOS, as a pedagogical advisor. She visits Palestine several times in 1931, 1934, between 1935 and 1936, and 1938 to 1939. She considers emigration. She is invited by Feiga Lifshitz, a former pupil with whom she's very close, and she is invited to Ein Harod kibbutz. Before the outbreak of the war, she decides to return to Warsaw because she believes she's needed. She has to return to taking care of children in the orphan's house. And we know that both Stefa and Korczak feel very tired and frustrated in the 1930s. Today, we would probably call it burnout after years of working with very little rest. The financial situation of Orphan's House is difficult. They both have an impression that the pedagogical system they created has proved to be a failure because young people who leave orphans' home are unprepared for challenges they have to face in their adult lives. They both put blame on themselves, not on external conditions, while in the reality, what their alumni face is the great economic depression, growing anti-Semitism, etatism, which is also directed against the Jews in the Polish reality. And on one hand, she seems to understand the situation because, for example, she comes up with an idea to open up an employment agency for young people living foster care. But on the other hand, she is depressed. So she returns to Poland finally in May 1939. She wants to respond to challenges of the time of the war, so she organizes a dressing station in the orphan's home during the siege of Warsaw in 1939. She also responds to deteriorating material conditions by organizing a tailor workshop where young people between 14 and 24, often residents or alumni of orphans' home or other youth care institutions, can find a job. She organizes teaching when the occupying authorities close schools for Jewish children. And the orphans' home moves two times. First, after the creation of the ghetto in November 1940 to Chłodna Street, and then again when the borders of the ghetto were changed in October 1941. So she organizes relocations. But most of all, she tries to create the atmosphere of safety for children. Uh, she tries to maintain the internal order and to protect children from the horrors of the ghetto. So a notice board system, a notice board, a system of duties for children, court, other internal institutions of the orphans' home continue to exist also in the ghetto. And during the Great Deportation operation, most probably on the 5th of August, 1942, Wilczyńska, Korczak, and the orphans are deported to death in Treblinka. So now moving to how she's depicted. In many articles, many works on Wilczyńska, published in Poland, there is a strong emphasis on her links to Polish culture, which is something that we, as I have mentioned, don't know exactly much about. And that's and the story of her secondary school is usually used for this purpose because Sikorska school has a history of illegal teaching of Polish literature, Polish history before Poland regained independence in 1918. Because
Mariusz, you have 5 minutes left.
okay, I will finish in 5 minutes. Because we don't know why she decided to work with children. The story that often comes up is that she falls in love with Korczak. As she is often depicted as Korczak's co-worker and still sometimes even as Korczak's assistant, those who talk about her often feel obliged to emphasize she was self-directed. And again, usually they use the story of the orphans' home during World War I and during the Bolshevik War, when Korczak is out. He has been called to the army as a doctor, so he's absent. And she runs the orphans' home independently in hard times, facing market shortages, inflation, diseases, and so on and so on. What Stefa is credited for is taking the burden of everyday responsibilities on herself being practical, paying attention to details, being quick and smart at finding out insights about other people. But Korczak is always a point of reference. So these stories say that he would not be able to write and work so much if she did not do so much administrative work, for example. In the late 1920s and 1930s, Stefa publishes a few articles in Doskind and Przegląd Społeczny, a Yiddish language and a Polish language periodicals, pedagogical journals published by Santos. She writes about teenagers leaving foster care and entering adult life and proposes a system of assisting them that would be tailored to their needs, but that would also take into consideration financial possibilities of care providers. As a pedagogical advisor in Santos, she writes about how to organize a system of supervision over care centers that would contribute to improving their work, and not, on the other hand, that would not be treated as oppressive. She writes about recruitment of educators, and again offers systemic solutions. So obviously she was a good manager, but these skills are underestimated. On one hand, because she was a woman, but I think on the other also, because in the first half of the 20th century, educational or social care institutions are not considered institutions that require professional management. And the fact that she works together with Korczak easily evokes a traditional figures of a caring mother and a more distant father, engaged in various activities outside of the family. And again, this is how they are still often depicted, which is quite conservative, I would say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. And yes, you just strengthened the feeling that we have that somehow history has done a real misjustice when we are dealing with Stefa, because she was more than Korczak's right hand. She was much more than that. And we can see it in memories or memoirs written by those who managed to survive the Warsaw Ghetto and knew her personally. So thank you very much for enlightening us. Now we are approaching towards our last but not least, of course, speaker. It is Miss Tammy Kingberg, who is going to talk about Drawing Hope, Friedel Dicker Barnais and the Children of Theresian. Tammy is the CEO of Beit Theresienstadt. She holds a master's degree in history, specializing in the psychological and historical aspects of the Holocaust. She began her career as an educator officer in the IDF. She later became an accredited tour guide and educator at various historical museums, including the one of Han Hedera and the old country yard of Ein Shemer. Both are in Israel. So now Tammy is going to give us the third dimension of our evening, and she is going to bring us to drawing hope. Tammy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to be here with you. I will share the presentation. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, I hope you all see the presentation. I will talk about Friedel Dicke-Brandeis, and Friedel was 46 years old when she was murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau. After 2 years as inmate in Ghetto Theresienstadt. But in those 2 short years, she affected the children that she worked with so deeply that those children took with them.
Zamir, excuse me, we don't see your presentation.
Ah, okay. I'll try to do it again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I said, in those 2 short years in Ghetto Theresienstadt, the children who she taught got lessons for life. They took with them her spirit and the way she taught them for the rest of their lives. Friedel was born in Vienna. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So she was born in Vienna in 1898, and she was learning. She studied in an art school, and she was really multidisciplinary artist. As you can see in the slide, she was a graphic designer. She also was a training as a photographer, as an art teacher. She was she studied architecture, interior design, and also part of her career, she also designed costume and scenery for the theater. So she was really in many fields of art. Also, you can see that she was weaving the picture, the second one from in the middle. She was specializing in textile. And she was very talented, and while she was still studying, she started already teaching children how to draw and art lessons. And in 1919, joined Johannes Eaton, who came from the Bauhaus school. She joined him with other pupils to Weimar, to the Bauhaus school. And this was a part of her life that influenced her very much. And all the lessons that she will give later on were based on the principles of the Bauhaus, the theory of contrast that provides the foundation for creating form, black and white, good and bad, and so on. And this principle were taken with her anywhere she in everything she touched. She had an design studio in Vienna, later on also in Berlin and in Prague. And you can see also in the corner, you can see a kindergarten that she designed with her associate from Franz Singer. They shared a studio for art. And this kindergarten, they designed the building, I mean, the way it looked like, and also the furnitures. And for example, just to show you what I meant about her principles, one of the children that attended to this kindergarten recall how the chairs were made in such a way they were too heavy for the small children to move them, so two had to move it together. And this was a way to teach them how to work in cooperative work and teamwork. And this was one of the principles she took, helping each other, working together, and being patient to each other. Friedel in the 30s joined the Communist Party in Vienna, and she designing posters for the Communist Party. She was very moved by the lack of social justice and put into jail for 2 weeks. Influence on her, and she decided to leave Austria and move to Prague, to Czechoslovakia. Her aunt was living there, and when she moved there, she met her cousin, Pavel Brandes, who was younger than her. They fell in love and got married, and she continued working there, continue with the design, the art design in the studio, but also working with children. And here you can see some of her ideas about how you teach children to draw. And she says, for example, that drawing lessons are not meant to make all children painters. The idea of using this technique in order to help their self-esteem, in order to strengthen the children, started already before she came to Theresienstadt. But when she was sent to Theresienstadt, this was very meaningful. You can notice that there are some training with different graphic ways of painting. You can see all kind of objects that they're painting. You can see different technique like collage, and when she arrived to Ghetto Theresienstadt, when she was sent with her husband in December 1942, the first thing she asked for is that she would like to work with the children and to teach them how to draw, and also do with them art therapy. And Friedel is getting a small room in one of the children homes, the Heim, the girls' Heim, and she starts to teach them how to draw and ask them to draw their feelings, their dreams, their memories. And I would like to show a short piece of movie. You will see in this movie her a student that followed her from, she started teaching her in Vienna and she followed her to Prague. Edith Kramer is her name, and she managed to fled to the United States and survive. Friedel remained in Prague and later on was sent to Theresienstadt. And in the movie you can see Edith telling, she herself became an artist and art therapist, and she will describe the way, the pedagogical methods that Friedel used, and also the girls that Friedel taught in the ghetto are telling about the way she worked with them. So I will start the movie.
Tady byly takový kozy udělaný, ano, to pekla, když se dělá ta výstava dětí a tady byly ty obrazy. tady vyšly.
עם כל הפרדוקס שבכך, דווקא בטרזין, פרידל מגיעה לשלמות העצמית. המאבקים הפנימיים נפסקים, וכל עוצמתה מכוונת כאן לה.
Tak si to tak pamatuju. To bylo celý. Já zase mám...
It's very unclear. Zamir, it's very hard to see.
Že když jsem k ní přišla poprvé, tak říkala, co by jsem chtěla kreslit. Já jsem jí říkala, já nevím, já
It's very short, so
a jako ta naše paní učitelka, že jsme měli za paní učitelku, tak říkala, nadělej tu nějakých pár čár. Já jsem je
try to change maybe the definitions here, and maybe this will work better. Okay.
žmárala na ten
I hope
tapík.
now you can see better.
A ona mi říká, co z toho vidíš, co bys tam tak chtěla z toho vytvořit. Já jsem mi řekla, já tam nevidím nic. Nějaký čáry. Ona říká, tak papír musíme trošku
Tammy is not working.
otočit a něco.
Maybe we can do it without the video, Tammy.
Chtěla teda respektive ona. A
to be translated into.
Tammy, maybe we can do it without the video. Can you go on with your presentation without the video,
Okay,
please?
I will skip. Yeah, okay, I stopped it. Yes, okay. What the video shows, I'm sorry, it's just an old movie, so it's not in a good quality. How she used to work with the children by Tate. She would give them some paths, like clipping hands, some rhythm, or a sound like donor. And
can you just close the video? It's
to
disturbing the lecture.
They had. I did not close it. Just
Tammy,
a minute.
leave the video and come back with the lecture.
Yes. I closed it. Do you still see it? I don't think it's working.
Now it's better. Now it's a picture. Okay. Go on, please.
Okay. Okay. So she would dictate either rhythms or she would tell a story, and the children had to follow the story and listen and draw objects that are mentioned in the story for several times, or draw different objects that are in the same application field, for example, a hammer and nails, or work tools, or things like this. And this made the children very attentive, and they had to concentrate and listen. And this was a way that she could catch their attention. She had different techniques, and she was also using, she didn't have many materials, as you can see here in this work of collage. These are different forms that were thrown away, and she would use this in order to make the artworks with the children, because there were not enough materials in the ghetto, of course, that she could use. And this also was a way to encourage the creativity of the children and teach them how to use in really the most minimalized conditions, how they can express themselves, even though the circumstances are not easy and not in their favor. Another technique that she would use is art inspired by famous artists. Here you can see a drawing by the Dutch artist Zamir, and she would teach the children about those artists, and also ask them to make their own interpretation of the painting. So here you can see how children are imitating or trying to copy the artwork in the way they see it. And of course, as I said before, her idea was that the child will do whatever he feels free to do. It was not meant in order to teach them and tell them exactly what they have to do, but on the contrary,
Tammy,
to
it's
let them
always the
express
same picture.
Slides are
It's
not
not moving.
It's not moving.
It's not
And can you
moving. I'll
please
try
enlarge?
again. So,
Can you
okay,
please enlarge?
I'll try again.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, is this now?
It's the same one.
Okay.
You have to enlarge the presentation.
Okay, I will try again. Now, do you see the picture? And then when I'm going, you see now the next?
No, but you have to enlarge the presentation.
Okay. Okay, I'll try again. Just a minute. Can you see it now?
No. Oh, yeah.
No.
Now we
Okay.
can.
So
no, you have to enlarge it, Tammy. We see
so
it
now
very small.
It's enlarged. It's
never mind.
enlarged.
Continue, but be
okay,
aware.
And never mind. I will just.
But make sure that the slides are moving.
It's not.
Okay. We see Vermeer.
This.
Okay.
Did you see now this? Now you see now. Did it move?
Leave it and continue.
Continue with your presentation. Okay. Leave it. It's not working.
Okay. Okay. So as I said, Friedel was teaching the children in very interesting methods of education, and her idea was really to empower the children and to give them some sort of self-esteem, to be to give them more, to strengthen them. And one of the things she insisted was that names, even those the small children who didn't know yet how to write, she taught them how to write their name, because she said, if you know what is your name, you know who you are. And she even managed to make an exhibition, and this is what you saw in the movie. If you could see it, the girls there were in the cellar where the exhibition was, and one of the girls said that she remembered where it was because she won the first prize in this exhibition. There was also a competition, and that's how this is so important. It was for her that she remembered until this day where it was and how it looked like. And later on, those children, in the drawings that they did, she would keep them, and she also analyzed it in order to understand what are the problems and what are the difficulties that they are facing as an art therapist. Havel Brandes, her husband, was sent to Auschwitz on September 1944, and Friedel managed to join him. Of course, she wanted to be with him. She didn't understand where those transports were leaving to, but she volunteered to go on another transport on October 1944. But before she went on this transport, she collected the drawings of the children into 2 suitcases, and she asked one of her friends, Willy Groag, who was also an educator in the children's homes. She asked him to keep it for her. When she didn't come back after the war, he brought those drawings to the Jewish Museum in Prague, where they are exhibited and kept until today. What is interesting about those drawings is that in many of them, when you analyze them, I mean, the professional, when they analyze it, people who are dealing with children drawings, they say that those drawings show that the children were very healthy spiritually, and they were very strong and happy, which makes it really something surprising because it's in the ghetto. But probably her work with the children succeeded, and she managed to give them the feeling of a secure place and the ability to express themselves. Friedel was, as I said, murdered in Auschwitz, but until today, her methods, her story is taught in schools for art therapy in Israel and also abroad. And she died very young, but her legacy remained until today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Now we have a few moments. If you have questions to our speakers, this is the time to ask them. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll sum up. We've met three distinguished lecturers with three distinguished items, three very different women, all connected to education during the Holocaust. And unfortunately, only one of them really survived. So her story, Luba's story, had, if we can say, a happy ending. We saw her picture in Israel after the war. Stefa and Friedel unfortunately perished. I see that we have a question here. Yes, Alessandro?
Yes, a question for the last lecturer, Dr. Kimberg. If it's possible to have a copy of the documentary about Edith Kramer for the video library in our organization, because it's very, very interesting. It's only about that. Thank you.
Well, it's not a movie that was made in Beit Terezin, but I think it's on the YouTube, so I can
Somebody's
definitely send
radio
you.
is in. Alessandro, it's your radio. Please close it. It's disturbing.
So as I said, I can send the link. It is called Black and White Can Be Colorful. This is the movie, and it was made. It's a cooperation of Israeli television and the Czech, a Czech co-production. And I can send to Lily or Batya the link, and they can share it with you. It's an
Thank
old
you.
movie, so it's a bad condition, but it's really very interesting to see it.
Thank you.
Okay, if we have no other questions, it's time to say good night or good morning, depends where you are. Thank you again for our very... Yes?
Can you please mention our next...
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you, Batya, for reminding me. Not as usually in 2 months, but we have on the 19th of June a special panel dedicated to the occasion of 81 years of the huge deportations of Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz. And since it's meeting my own family's biography, I thought that it would be very important to mention it, although it's only 2.5 weeks from this meeting. We are going to send you after the holiday the invitation, the link, and also the speakers. And which makes the event even more interesting is that we are going to have the cooperation of the Hungarian embassy and the Hungarian cultural attaché in Israel. So we are really looking forward to see you with us. In the meantime, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you again for the speakers, and have a very safe and quiet evening, which is very important here in Israel. See you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.